Greetings, everyone, and welcome to ACEDS Data Unmasked, streaming live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. My name is Mike Quartararo. I am the president of ACEDS. Today, we're going to be joined momentarily by Scott Sterkel, who is Senior Vice President of Sales and Sales Operations at HaystackID. Scott's been in the legal industry, e-discovery space for decades. We'll get into his background a little bit. But first, I should point out that Haystack is, of course, a professional services organization providing e-discovery, information governance, and cybersecurity services to the legal community. You can learn more about Haystack at HaystackID.com. Haystack is also an incredible and very important partner of ACEDS, and we like to showcase what our partners are doing for the benefit of our members and the e-discovery community. So every month we're talking with experts like Scott to discuss some of the latest trends and happenings in the industry. Let's get into it. Scott, thanks so much for making time to join us, and welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you, Mike. It's good to be here.
All right, so first time on the broadcast, so what I always like to do is give our listeners a little taste of who you are. Tell us a little bit about your career journey. What brought you to the e-discovery industry?
Yeah, it was a little bit by accident. After
that seems to be a common theme, by the way.
Right, nobody joins willingly, right? It's always by accident or some other way. But no, I had fully intended to go to law school and decided last minute not to do that, go that path. So I ended up working as a paralegal at Paul Hastings in Los Angeles for about a year or so before getting into this business, sort of up by accident, I mentioned. And from there, the last 20, 25 years have been a blur.
You could say that again. Listen, I'm always fascinated by sales and sales operations, mostly because I'm not very good at it. But when I meet people like yourself who have obviously had some success in the space, I'm always curious to understand. You've been through a number of different acquisitions at HaystackID, integrated Night Owl, BIA. What are some of the challenges you saw in aligning these legacy and add-on sales teams, and what steps did you take to really create the kind of cohesion and consistency that is really required of a good sales operation?
Yeah, for sure. So I joined Haystack 5 years ago when they acquired Night Owl Discovery. I had been with Night Owl for about 15 years, and we were a very successful company on our own, and then brought together under the Haystack umbrella. And what I quickly realized was that Haystack is really made up of about 5 or 6 different companies that have been brought together under one umbrella. So there really was no Haystack way of doing something. For example, each company had sort of its own way of doing things, and each company was really, highly successful on their own. And so the tendency was just to keep doing what you did at that previous company. And there was really no standardized way of doing things at Haystack. So, we realized pretty quickly that if we were going to continue to grow and hit the revenue numbers that were set before us, that we needed to develop that Haystack way of doing things. And so everybody was on the same page, so to speak, and that, there was no reinventing the wheel each time, that there was a standard operating procedure for, each task. And everybody knew how to do that, and we just all continued down the same path. So that was one of the big things that we realized, was that we had to standardize because we were just getting too big to do it any other way. And, in terms of being able to provide consistent delivery and communication with clients and just internal operations, there had to be a Haystack way of doing things. So that was one of our main initiatives early on, was to create that. And, it created not only from operations, but sales and sales operations, and even into, our billing department and things like that. We had to standardize.
Was there a particular turning point where the sales leadership really started to understand, hey, we need to operationalize some of this stuff, and if we're going to scale, if we're going to grow, and what was that turning point?
Yeah, I think the turning point was, as we continued to add sales team members and our team was growing, we couldn't operate like a small company. We really truly had to, you know, operate as a big company that we were becoming. And, you know, because we had so many different salespeople, there really had to be a standardized approach from, you know, how we were prospecting, how we were using CRM, how, you know, we were engaging with clients from a pricing standpoint, from a contracting standpoint, project kickoff. All of those things really had to be buttoned up and, you know, very much operationalized so that we could handle the scale, not only the scale of the number of people we had on the team, in terms of the number of clients that, you know, we were encountering and, you know, starting new projects with on a daily basis. It really had to become much more efficient, and standardization was really a key way that we achieved that. So I think just the overall growth of the sales team really drove that.
And it's not just about internal efficiency, right? Um, it really, you know, what your salespeople do directly impacts the client experience. How have some of these changes improved how clients
Yeah.
engage with Haystack from the first conversation to sustaining, you know, the kinds of long-term relationships that sales professionals really need?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's a really good point. I think that because of the standardization that we did internally, that then permeated to the external communications and contacts with clients. And I think clients then began to experience a more consistent approach from Haystack, consistent in terms of our messaging, you know, coming from marketing, consistency in terms of just outreach from our sales reps, consistency across events we were attending. So there became some consistency and some expectation. But then I think also, you know, in terms of just engaging with us on a matter basis, because we had standardized things so much, you know, clients really knew what to expect. You know, when they would contact us about a new matter, they knew, you know, we were going to ask them to do a conflict check. We were going to ask them to put an agreement in place. We were going to have a kickoff call. We had all these things. So they became to, you know, expect that. And because they expected that, you know, they're ready for it. And, you know, that consistency, I think, helped, um, you know, shorten the time frame from the time we first engaged with them to actually launching a project.
That's awesome. I wanted to ask you about something because it has been said that running a sales organization is in many ways comparable to coaching a top tier sports team. Talent alone is insufficient. You need structure, you need discipline. First, do you agree with the analogy? And second, how do you approach coaching on your team so their individual strengths thrive within, you know, obviously the broader sales operation?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that analogy. You know, that was one of the things that I realized pretty quickly at Haystack is just the immense amount of talent that is at this organization. Uh, but I also know that talent alone doesn't make a company successful, right? You have to have leadership in place that you know, provides the sort of direction that we're going in. But then also you need to have, you know, sort of that structure and the strategy that everybody knows and understands. This is how we're going to, you know, accomplish what we're going to do. So taking that talent, putting some structure and some guidance around it, and then at the sales operational level, really helping execute, you know, on the tactical level, to help us reach our strategy is really important. So, you know, I'm a big believer that talent plus strategy plus, you know, tactical execution really equals success. And I think those have been some of our big drivers of successes, you know, here at Haystack.
It's interesting strategy, tactics. I want to ask you another question, and that is because when I look at successful sports teams, just to stick with the analogy, it's always struck me that those teams that are really successful, pick your sport, doesn't really matter. The
Yeah.
teams that are really successful have what I call chemistry. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on sort of that chemistry and how do you maintain that within a sales operation?
Chemistry is huge. It's so important. And, you know, especially in the sales organization, you have a lot of pretty strong personalities, right? And They're all highly successful individuals, but getting them to operate as a team sometimes is the challenge. And that chemistry you mentioned is really important. But I think, what we've done is, first of all, understanding and respecting each person as the individual they are and the value that they bring to the company, and then trying to mold that together with all the other people on the team so that, at the end of the day, we are on the same team. We all have the same goal. Individually, we may get there a little bit differently, but respecting that and giving people the freedom to have that latitude to operate individually, but yet within the framework of the team. And I think understanding each person's strengths and weaknesses, we're able to sort of coach and guide according to those so that it's not a one size fits all approach. It's, again, some latitude for the individuals to be themselves, but also understanding we're part of a bigger team. And to be successful, we really have to have, the team mentality first. And, if we do that, then individually we should be pretty successful too.
Yeah, I think a lot of people approach or view, a sales team as this group of sort of competing individuals, and it's not about the individual accomplishment; it's about the team, and I think that's lost on a lot of people, and it's fascinating to watch, and good for you. From what I know about Haystack and the team, it's been highly successful. So good for you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Looking ahead, is there some sort of advice that you would give to any other organizations? I don't want you to give away any trade secrets or anything, but is there something that you would suggest to other providers, software, sales organizations in general, that when they're merging, steps they need to take to really try to understand how they're going to scale, especially when it comes to building that trust and alignment that obviously customers require?
I think one of the big keys is just transparency, right? Identifying the situation for what it is. You have organizations, talent merging together, and understanding that they've all done things different ways to be successful, but trying to take the best of each approach and combining it into the way we're going to go forward is tend to be the way that we've been successful. But I think the feedback we've always gotten is that, when things went well, it was because there was a lot of transparency and the team felt that there was buy-in and that they were being heard and that the company really had their best interest, at heart. And we were trying to, make a team out of all these individual components. So transparency was really big. And I think also, again, just, stakeholder feedback. And when I say stakeholder, I'm talking about the people that are all coming together. So, understanding different points of view and trying to take the best of everybody's experience and combining it into the way that we were going to go forward has tended to be really important, because I think at that point people understand and feel like, they've been heard and that they really truly are part of a team, and, that they're going to be successful going forward.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Are there any sort of new systems or approaches that you're excited about implementing next?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that everybody talks about AI, and we're no different. And because of the way we are going to grow and just the sheer scale that we need to grow to, we're always looking in the sales operations group of different ways that we can do more with less, right? More with less people, less time, less whatever it might be. And artificial intelligence really, has sort of been the game changer for us. And, one aspect in particular that we've used it for and found a lot of success is that just in the answering of RFPs, we answer a lot of those, as a company throughout the year. It's a big part of how we win business, and RFPs can take a lot of time, and, they're an important part of our business. So, as we see more and more of those, how can we get better at answering those faster and, not consuming so much time? So we've been experimenting with a couple of different tools, and, we found that they're probably, what would take us 40 hours normally, we can do now in an hour with the generative AI technology. So we're excited about that, in sales operations, how that's going to be able to allow us to scale and get even better at the RFP process.
Yeah, I used to hate RFPs, so. But they're a necessary part of the process. So, it's
They are.
important
They are. Yeah.
finding efficiencies like that in, what is sort of a boring task is always exciting to hear about. All right. So last but not least, there was a debate at the last ILTACon in Nashville. I know that you live outside Nashville. Word on the street is you've got some advice on the proper wearing of a cowboy hat. We like to have fun here. We like to have a laugh when we can. So for those watching who may not know the proper protocol, can you share the correct way to sport a cowboy hat? And if you want to give us the backstory too, because
I was just going to say, let me give you a little context. So
I butchered it.
Yeah, the ILTACon conference was in Nashville last year, and so attending that conference with a lot of my Haystack colleagues, we were noticing, a lot of people wearing cowboy hats, which is one of the things I love about Nashville. I rarely without a cowboy hat myself, and so when I see people coming to town wearing cowboy hats, it's pretty exciting. But I've also noticed over the years that some people don't always, understand how to wear a cowboy hat. So I've seen people wearing them backwards or just, not not the right way. So my Haystack colleagues were, wanting me to sort of coach them on that, and so I did. And I mean, there are different things, but I'm big into cowboy hat etiquette and just making sure you're wearing the right hat for the right season. There are different types of hats you wear in the cold weather versus this summer weather, and
who knew?
Just making sure you're wearing the right type of hat at the right time and that you have it on frontwards, instead of backwards. Those things are all important. And, if you're interested in more details, I could probably talk for another 30 minutes, but I'm always happy to talk offline about that.
Let me just ask this. Best hat you can buy?
Best hat you can buy.
I mean, understanding salaries may not be, we're not talking celebrity hat. We're talking, average.
Right. So there are really two different kinds of cowboy hats you can buy, right? There's a straw cowboy hat and a felt cowboy hat. So the felt cowboy hat is the one that you wear generally in the wintertime or for more formal occasions. Straw hats are the ones you wear in the summertime when it's warmer out and, a little bit cooler, a little bit more breathable and things like that. So,
or you're a bride to be down on Broadway in Nashville.
Right. So, I think in terms of the best hat to buy, just buying the right hat for the right season makes a huge difference. And, the amount of money you spend on a cowboy hat generally does translate into the quality of a cowboy hat. If you're going to wear it every day, you probably want to invest a little bit. I can get into a lot of the nuances, but how they rate cowboy hats. But generally, the more X's a cowboy hat has, generally means it's higher quality. So a 30X hat is going to be higher quality than, say, a 10X cowboy hat. So if you're looking to buy quality, just pay attention to the number of X's, and generally translates into more dollars per X's.
Got it. That's really helpful. All right. Are we going to get a demonstration here?
Yeah, you had to encourage me, right? So,
So
here's a cowboy hat. This is a straw cowboy hat that I wear in the warmer season, generally between like April and into September is straw hat, especially here in Tennessee where it's warmer and straw hats are breathable. And generally they're the ones that are sort of this off-white or white color, so that they're pretty distinctive. And if you look on the inside of a cowboy hat, I'm not sure how well you can see this on the camera, but on the inside of a cowboy hat, there's always a bow, and that always goes in the back. And that's the main thing you want to pay attention to, is just making sure the bow is in the back, and then just, putting it right on the head like that.
Awesome. Couldn't have done it better. All right, listen, my friend, how do listeners get in touch if they are interested in reaching out to you?
Sure. I mean, you can always reach me on LinkedIn. You can also just email me directly at ssterkel@haystackid.com. So that's SSTERKEL, haystackid.com.
Awesome. Scott, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being a great sport.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. It's been a
And
pleasure.
thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you are interested in our short form interviews like this one, you can find Data Unmasked and our We Are ACEDS series in your LinkedIn, Facebook feeds, and check out the ACEDS YouTube channel where you can watch previous interviews. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today, and be kind to one another.
Thank you.